everyone, and welcome to another exciting spoiler podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
And I'm Dan.
And it's just the three of us today talking about the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, previously titled just Ninja Turtles. Almost had that title, almost had just Ninja Turtles. And we're gonna give you a spoiler podcast. We're gonna tell you how we felt about the movie and talk about all the ins and outs of it, as we like to do on these. So Sarah and I did a initial how we're feeling it review, and so you've kind of heard some of our opinions already. Nobody's heard from Dan at all yet on this, except for me. Dan and I have spoken at length about this, but we didn't record that conversation, and so we decided to bring the the three of us in. Mostly, actually, Vince was supposed to be here, but he was unfortunately not feeling very well. And so it's just the three of us. And then I invited Eric, but he hasn't seen it yet. So this is what we got. But this should be a good time. Dan, why don't you start us off and just give us your initial feelings about the movie, and then we're just gonna we'll skip the best thing worst thing, because Sarah and I have already kind of done that in another video, and we'll just kind of jump straight in and talk about whatever topics come up that people want to discuss about the movie. So Michael Bay produced Ninja Turtles. Go.
This movie, I felt like I was watching an adaptation of the Ninja Turtles Wikipedia page, because it's all just everything superficial that you might want in a Ninja Turtles movie. The personalities are kind of there, and the film tells you a lot of things about Turtles lore and backstory that you want to have in the movie. But it's all telling and no showing. I feel like there's no tangible relationships between any of the characters. The plot is kind of a really good adaptation of the cartoon in that it doesn't really make any sense at all. I don't know, I didn't really find all that much to like in this movie, other than some of the action scenes and some of the little fan servicey stuff. But it's definitely not a very well-constructed film. If you're a Turtles fan, you might enjoy it, but I wouldn't recommend seeing it unless you're kind of knee-deep in this stuff already.
Lots of stuff there to latch onto. Sarah, anything Dan brought up that you want to go ahead and just start us launch off with?
Well, I will say that I am a Turtles fan, and I didn't care for this movie very much. So.
Well, you did flip your side
I
green.
did. Okay.
You did say you were feeling it.
I was feeling it in the sense that I actually am glad I went and saw it, just to because
look
knowing it's out there.
Being glad that you saw it to make fun of it doesn't count.
And it wasn't flat out horrible.
It was not flat out horrible.
I think I would recommend it to people to see. Maybe not necessarily in the theater, but it's not terrible.
I think it's got real potential still. When it was announced that because it's already been announced now. I don't know if you saw it, Dan. That it is getting sequels.
Oh, okay.
And they're talking about wanting to do Bebop and Rocksteady and Casey Jones in the next movie. And here's the thing. I think that what we've got is a really kind of bland, lackluster movie that's very by the numbers and kind of like every superhero film you've ever seen, or at least like it's really traditional in a bad way. It's very been there, done that, and I kind of think that I don't like the designs of the turtles and stuff. There's a lot of stuff just in what it looks like that I don't care for, but I do feel like a better movie could have been made, but I don't think they've ruined it yet. I don't think what they have isn't a potential platform to jump off into something a whole lot more fun. And most importantly, my big thing is creativity. I just feel like there's no imagination in this movie. With the exception of a few gags and jokes here and there. It really feels like a homework assignment. It's like somebody was told to make a Ninja Turtles movie that didn't know or have any passion for the property, and so this is what we got. And I think that it's also, and this is the big thing I want to talk about during this, so I'll bring this back up, but especially given that there's so much responding to initial criticism before the thing even got made. It seems like most of this movie is trying to figure out what they think Turtles fans want. And every time somebody complained about something, they would go back and they would kind of patchwork it and change it a little bit and try to turn it into more of what they thought we wanted. And that's where all the generic comes from, Dan, I think.
Well, and so many of the plot holes, too. Or maybe not so much plot holes as just, I don't know, gaps in storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I think it's very apparent that William Fichtner was supposed to be the guy in the Silver Samurai costume throughout the movie, and they just changed it because Turtles fans got angry. I mean, he even has a backstory of being raised by a father in Japan and stuff, and like learning feudal legends and stuff. And like, if they had approached it in that way, I wouldn't have been necessarily all that annoyed, because I like that actor more than the what little we got of whoever that guy was that played the Shredder in this movie when it ended up being made. So I don't know.
It really seems like they just went back and doctored their original script really heavily instead of just starting over. I mean, I really feel like one of two things should have happened with this. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't have still had issues if they'd gone with the Turtles are from Dimension X story that they had originally apparently been going with. There was a leaked script. I've been told about it. I've not read it, but what I've been told from people that have read it is that the Turtles were in the original script. This is where the whole alien thing comes from. Which, by the way, people going to the theater, a bunch of people still thought that's what it was. So clearly, the alien thing wouldn't have hurt it at the box office because people were going and still thought that was there. So anyway, originally the idea was the Turtles come from Dimension X, and their father gives them to I guess there's just mutant turtles in Dimension X, and their father gives them to Splinter to train because it's prophesized or something that they're supposed to defeat Krang. And then when the whole when people started freaking out about the alien thing, they just went back and doctored that original script, and you can kind of see little snippets of things still there from that original idea. And I think what they should have done was either stuck to their guns and gone with what they had. And I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with that, but hear me out, because there are lots and lots and lots of different versions and permeations of Ninja Turtles. As I always say, you can make anything work, you've just got to make it work. I'm not going to say that idea couldn't work. I don't like it right off necessarily, but like, okay, how much does it change the actual Ninja Turtle premise that much, as long as they were, because I don't know if they were sent to Earth in that script later or earlier, but like, if they were from Dimension X and then sent here as babies or something and then brought up by Splinter, it could be exactly the same thing, except the origin's a little different. You know what I mean? Like, they could still be characterized exactly the same way. So I feel like what hurt this the most was just a whole bunch of responding to criticism before the thing even came out and trying to guess at what people wanted. They should have either kept what they had, or they should have gone back to the drawing board completely and started over.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Even if they had stuck to their guns, I just don't have a whole lot of faith in the talent that made this movie. Like,
Fair enough.
This movie, like, all of the dialogue, in the writing in this movie, even when it's scenes that like are supposed to be like developing the characters and stuff, it's just them like speaking plot and exposition to each other instead of actually developing relationships in the characters and telling us something about them. Like, for example, when we have that scene with William Fichtner and Megan Fox talking about like Megan Fox's past and stuff, it's just kind of like explaining backstory other than building a relationship between the two of them. And I felt like that's where they wanted it to go to some degree. Like, it was some big betrayal at the end of the movie when she finds out that he killed her father. And I didn't really get that sort of impact at all because the relationship wasn't developed between the two of them.
Yeah, we just got token scenes, and
yeah, exactly.
They wanted us to feel a feeling without actually building it.
Yeah, exactly. So I just don't have a lot of confidence that these people know how to tell a story well enough that I would have enjoyed anything that they'd given us, to be honest. I don't know.
That's completely fair. I just think it's possible it would have been more coherent.
Yeah, it's possible.
Who knows? I mean, I'm looking at this in retrospect. I don't know. It's hindsight.
Oh, exactly. Naturally. Yeah, for sure.
But a lot of what was really killing it for me, because as I said in the non-spoiler review we did, I was with it for the first 20-25 minutes. And I'm hearing a lot of people saying, oh, well, that's contrary to what everybody else is saying, because everybody thought the first 20 minutes were a slog and it didn't get going until after that. Well, if you're only there for the action. But to me, but I mean, like, you know, it was doing traditional storytelling setup stuff. It was giving me reasons to care about April O'Neil. She's a go-getter and she's proactive, and she's trying to make something of her career, and she feels like she's being underutilized and all of that. Like, I was with it. I was like, oh, this is kind of we've got a real honest to God character arc going on, and the Turtles are gonna be potentially her way to get her the big career and fame and fortune she always wanted. And then it's sort of like Man of Steel, and I saw a lot of Man of Steel connections in this movie, which is kind of but one of them was then she and they touch on this a little bit at the end, which is why I bring it up. Then she actually develops a relationship with the Ninja Turtles, and she doesn't want to turn them in and people to find out about them, because she wants to respect them, because that's what they want and she likes them. And so then she puts her friends in front of her career by the end, and that's kind of how what the character arc is supposed to be. Well, you got the beginning and the end of that, but then nothing in the middle is really matching up with all of that, because again, it's a patchwork script. You can tell that was probably what it was back when it was the alien thing. And then, I don't know, but that's what it seems like. And then in the middle, all of a sudden, she's got this, like, personal stake in the whole thing, and it becomes an entirely different kind of character arc, right?
Right, exactly. And I'm with you. Like, the first 20 minutes of the movie where we have inklings of a character arc where Megan Fox's April O'Neil might go somewhere, and even some potential, not heavy hitting or anything, but at least some sort of social commentary. But it's like, some of these news stories she's reporting on are complete nonsense fluff pieces that no one really needs to know about. And she feels like she should be talking about important things and informing people as a journalist. And I felt like, oh, maybe it's gonna try and actually be about something with her character.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't really at all.
You're right, Dan. I mean, you've got the potential idea of maybe we're using those fluff pieces in the media to try to help people feel more safe, and try to bury the violence and the insecurity that's going on because of the Foot Clan. And it's like the media. I'm projecting when I say this. This is not in the film, but wouldn't it have been kind of neat if you'd had some kind of correspondence between, like, the police and the media, where, like, they're working together to try to keep from causing a panic and stuff like that. Like, you could have really done something with that.
Right, we could have brought back the angry police chief from the original movies and had him help people. It would have been great. But it's the same thing with the Turtles character arcs. Like, there's this one token scene where Raphael says, "I'm a loner," and then at the end he kind of has, when the movie decides to be about something, when they're falling off the building, and he starts giving his big speech about how I was afraid and I really like you guys and stuff like that. And
it just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same sort of just lack of building the arcs that they want to get to by the end.
Well, yeah, I feel like it's a whole lot of just functional scenes strung together. It's one of
barely functional.
It's one of those. Well, but I just mean, like, have things that happen because you're supposed to have them for the kind of cookie cutter story they're telling, right? So it's like, okay, so we have the token moment where X happens. We have the villain explaining his plot, and the plot itself doesn't really matter. We just need a villain plot because we need the superheroes fighting something, and then you have the little token character thing for each of the Turtles, but ultimately they're pretty interchangeable, right? And also, like, and I'm not saying that there's nothing fun there. There's a lot of, like, really kind of fun gags and things, but they felt shoehorned in a lot of the time. Like, I didn't feel like all that was especially cohesive. One review I read said, "Where's the downtime?"
Mm-hmm.
With the Turtles, and I agree with that. And I don't mean. And the article I read, he didn't mean you needed a bunch of just, like, pointless scenes that weren't helping to move the story along. He just means that, like, when you're following characters in a story going through their lives, not every scene is gonna be we're fighting the bad guy. There's time for life to happen, and then you can explore ideas or talk about what it is that's going on and how it's affecting people in those scenes of downtime. Those are important, and you had those in the '90 film.
Oh.
You even had those in Turtles too, right? And where was it here? So I felt really distanced from our protagonists in this movie, and that you could have done that on purpose if you wanted to focus more on April and make it her story. That would have been fine, because they are sort of mysterious in that they're in the background and nobody's ever seen one. I don't see how that's even remotely possible, but that's what they wanted it to be, and they try to play up a little bit of that mystery thing. But how much of that stuff, like so much in this movie, was just homage? Was it just people know that the Ninja Turtles, for the fun juxtaposition of their fun-loving and constantly joking and laughing and messing around, but they somehow are able to balance that with being in the shadows. And so it's like, oh, well, it's supposed to be that, so it is that. But I don't know. It just seems kind of token and obligatory. And that was the word that kept going through my mind through the whole movie, was that is obligatory.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and I have to give it credit for at least some things, is like the flashbacks we got where we saw the turtles being young and like playing games together and stuff. Like that was maybe like the one scene where there was potential for them to maybe build a brotherly relationship with these characters that I would have bought. But it's just, again, kind of them just throwing exposition and backstory that you need to kind of understand the plot of the movie again, like every other scene is.
How easy is it to forget about those scenes?
Very easy.
Yeah. Sorry, you haven't said much yet.
No, well, I think we needed more of the turtles building their relationship with each other. But I thought at the beginning there were the seeds of it, and I really actually liked the relationship that the turtles had to Splinter in this.
I did too.
I thought that was actually really good. But as we get more into the action, we get less and less character stuff with the turtles, and more just the turtles are out there fighting, the bad guys, and I felt like the more we went on, the more distance we were from the turtles instead of the closer we were to them.
Well, did you feel, as it went along, that somehow the villains were on screen more often than the heroes were? And I don't think they were. It's just it's just in my mind that's what it seemed like somehow. I think because there was a lot of, it turned into that kind of pseudo Transformers thing of there's just a whole lot of, here's a big action scene, and it doesn't really feel like there's any emotional character stuff.
Well, I think there's a certain point in the movie, and after that point, the turtles are with the bad guys almost the entire time.
That's a good point.
I don't think there's really much downtime where we just have the turtles and not the bad guys in the same scene.
Mm-hmm.
Where once the villain plot starts,
after
they get kidnapped, where is there a scene where they're not in the same room with the villains fighting them until Shredder's finally defeated?
Yeah, okay, here's what we should do right now, because I want to get into some nitty-gritty, here's weird stuff. But before we do that, let's talk about stuff that worked. Let's talk about things that we liked. Let's talk about things that may have potential moving forward, since we're going to get more of these things. Dan, any other things that you can point to, besides anything we've said so far, that you think, yeah, that's okay, give me more of that?
I didn't think that the CGI turtles, for me personally, were as poorly integrated as I thought they would be. I thought they looked fine and well enough. I mean, I don't think they were as well integrated as the puppet costumes from the old movies, but I thought they looked decent. And the action, I thought, especially the scene with them sliding down the mountain, especially, that was a really fun action scene, because I could tell what was going on most of the time, because it wasn't like shaky cam, like them fight really fast ninjutsu moves, and the occasional slow motion slow down thing that's like the token Transformers action scene thing that Michael Bay likes to do. So like if we have more action scenes like the one where they're sliding down the mountain, I would be cool with that. The like third act of the movie is kind of one action scene after another, like set pieces. There's like one after another, which I'd restructure the movie somewhat, but at least that action scene by itself kept me entertained. So if we can keep me entertained with action like that and be invested in the characters at the same time, I think we have a winning formula.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's good. It's good that it's at least doing that, right? Because I mean, with the Transformers movies, and it's hard not to compare them because there's so many of the same people involved. You're looking at you're looking at a lot of what am I looking at? You know, I mean, there's just so,
Yeah.
like you said, there's so much shaking, and there's so much of a distance between your alien characters and your human characters. I didn't feel like this movie had so much that problem. I appreciated that there wasn't so much of a separation. But then at the same time, I didn't feel like anybody got enough screen time. Anybody got enough due. I felt like the action was the star of the piece, and I think that it kind of maybe. I know we're supposed to talk about things we like, but I feel like maybe what happened here was that because it had CGI characters, mostly moving the story along, that like that's what the thing was supposed to be about. Maybe it kind of lost. They forgot about characterization a little bit. It just got okay. Well, we've got CG characters hitting each other, and that's what we have. I do feel like there was a separation there, but I didn't feel like it was okay. You got the humans over here to waste some screen time so that we don't have to have CG characters in every scene. You know what I mean? So we don't have to render everything. It at least didn't have that problem. That's good. The big thing I'm gonna say, and I'm very surprised I'm saying this, is give me more April. I'm not a big Megan Fox fan. I don't think she's a really good actress, but I felt like she was serviceable, and I feel like they had potential with the character. She was fine. I liked her. I really did. I was fine with that. I liked it more at the beginning. I wished that by the end it hadn't turned into a you killed my father thing, because I just didn't feel like that fit with what they were doing before. But I really liked the spunky go get them, or go get the story reporter thing, and I really enjoyed the whole I'm the only person that realizes this is going on and nobody believes me, and I've got the key to fix this Foot Clan problem if people would just listen to me. I liked all of that. I don't know that you can, even though we've now done what we've done with that, I still feel like there's potential for that character.
Well, I really liked Vern, and I
did for a second.
I really liked Whoopi Goldberg's character. So if they do a sequel, I hope both of them come back. The problem with Vern was that he kept doing the same thing over and over and over again. Like they thought they had something going, and okay, well this will work, so let's just keep doing it. I think if he stops just pursuing April every single chance he gets, he'll be more likable. But other than that, it's, especially at the beginning, I liked the interaction that he had with April. And I liked that there was this other human character that tied us to the real world and just kind of grounded us.
I just thought of this. I think we need to be a little bit worried about a possible love triangle between those two and Casey Jones.
Or Michelangelo.
I hope that doesn't happen, but I think we need to be prepared for the possibility of that.
Have a love square going on
with one of the turtles. Yeah. So but I don't know. I didn't have a problem with any of the turtles independently. I think that they could do things with them.
Yeah, I mean, they could. I'm with Sarah about Vern. Like, I liked him, but it was sort of the same sort of problem that you have with all the other characters, is that they have one distinct personality trait, and they play it up like it's new every time, but it's really one note, and you get bored after, like, the second or third time.
Yeah, and Michelangelo was totally the same way.
Yeah, exactly.
He kept doing the same thing, and he kept hitting the same note. He kept trying to hit on April. What's up with that?
This has been a thing with Michelangelo lately, with a lot of Turtles properties. It seems like in the last 10 years or so, Michelangelo is like the front runner. He seems to be like in front all the time. I guess it's because he's more comedic effect than the others. You go back to the cartoon show, and they all had exactly the same kind of humor, and they were really interchangeable. So Michelangelo was the party dude, but he wasn't the jokester, because they all had exactly the same kind of jokes. With the exception of Raphael, who was supposed to be the more sarcastic guy. He was the only one that had different kinds of humor.
Yeah, he was a little bit more cynical and broke the third wall, but
Yeah, and that's fun. But yeah, so it broke the fourth wall. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
So then, I'm breaking the third wall all the time, Dan. Just by being on a three-dimensional plane, I tend to break the third wall. But anyway, what was I saying? You threw me off with that because that was hilarious. But yeah, so I mean, like this is a trap that it's easy to fall into with Michelangelo. If he is the most funny of them and the most, it's easy for the really clueless kind of airhead guy to kind of take over, because he's constantly cracking jokes and not understanding situations, and that's fine. It's like if you put the Tick on a team, if you put the Tick on a team, nobody else would ever get anything to say because he would be the most fun to write, right? And that's what happened with Michelangelo. I felt like Donatello was barely there. It was like every now and again he'd be like, oh yeah, Donatello's here, and mostly just because he's doing tech stuff. It's like somehow he's invented holographic technology living in a sewer. That's amazing. I don't know how he did.
I felt that way about Leonardo and Donatello.
Yeah, I sort of, yeah.
I mean, it was strange to me that we're gonna put Michelangelo in the spotlight so much, and then halfway through the movie, for some reason, decide that Raphael it's gonna be his movie, and we're gonna give him a character arc. But when it decides to be about something, like if anything, if you're gonna structure this movie in the way that they wanted to make Michelangelo the focus because he got the most screen time, why not make the character arc his?
And there were attempts at turning things on their head a little bit, but I think because the movie is moving at such a fast clip, and frankly, because I think it's kind of short,
Yeah.
It's easy to blink and miss that stuff. Like I just thought of this. They're trying to turn the whole who gets kidnapped thing on its head, right? Because it's usually Splinter or it's Raphael.
Yeah, and we can talk about that because the way they do it makes no sense.
yeah, we'll talk about it. This time, all three of the other turtles get kidnapped, and it's up to Raphael to go rescue them. That could have been cool, a cool kind of turnabout, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's things like that where they're going, let's remember that Turtles fans, and there are plenty of us, there are lots of not especially geeky Turtles fans, right? Like, we all grew up with Turtles before a certain age, so I'm saying that this, above even a lot of other properties, we don't have to just cater to the geeky fan base. There's lots of people that know something about Ninja Turtles that aren't into geeky stuff a lot. I think it's important to remember that. And so you think about all the different iterations, but especially the 80s cartoon and the first couple of movies, and especially the 90s movie, and they can't pretend like this is the first time we've ever seen this. So, they can for little kids, but the rest of us that want to see this thing, they're keeping in the back of their minds, or maybe right in the front of their minds, here's a property that these people have seen before. So let's try to shake it up a little bit, or do little wink, wink, nod, nod things, like let's have the other turtles get kidnapped and Raphael's crazy. That could have been cool, things like that. Let's talk origin for a second. I'm hearing a lot of people saying, couldn't we have just not done the origin again at all? I feel like if you're gonna make, I feel like if they had, from the outset, done it the way they're doing it, yes, we could have easily done this without origin. But originally they were going to do a very, very different origin. And I think at the point that they decided that everyone hated them and they needed to change their minds, they went, well, we're going to stay with origin because we already started there. But, I kind of think if you're going to go all the way back again for the umpteenth time, right, to we're going to do the first time they meet Shredder and all of that, yeah, maybe we could just go forward in the future and have it be we've fought Shredder a lot, especially because this is so informed by the 80s cartoon. This would have been the perfect time to just do, Shredder and Krang are in bed together and they're fighting the Turtles. This would have been the perfect time to not do origin if we had gone back and started over, I think.
Right. Yeah, but on the other hand, with a Turtles reboot, where this is obviously not any of the other previous continuities, you at least need to get some sense of where they came from and who they are, because we've just had so many different kinds of origins.
Well, you got to tell us where they came from.
Which one is it? And maybe it's just a flashback or something, but you do need to say, okay, this is where they came from, and then you can go, okay, they've been at it for 15 years or whatever.
But if you're going to be so generic in everything we've seen before again, there's some differences, but if you're going to be so generic in stuff we've seen before again, does it need to be the first time we've met April? Does it need to be the first time we fought the Shredder?
Yeah, I don't think so either. This video game that we have no control over even opens with a cutscene, too, so they could have easily put all that information in there.
Were you not reminded of the 2007 movie with that? I was ready to hear Lawrence Fishburne's voice.
Yeah, I kind of thought about that too. That's one of the things I should have mentioned when I mentioned things that I liked. I liked that looked like the Mirage comics, and it was in that sort of style, the opening cutscene. I thought it was very cool looking.
Well, they trick you into thinking they like and know and have reference for the material with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Is the thing. And I'm not saying nobody on the staff did. I'm surprised by things like they knew who Vern was. There's some stuff. Yeah. There is some kind of neat things here and there. Well, let's talk about origins. So, Dan, how did you feel about the thing they borrowed from IDW?
I thought superficially that was cool, but then they take that and they use it as an excuse to make April have this non-existent family-esque relationship with the turtles. Like she names them all as a kid, so from the filmmaker standpoint, because they're not really into or really understand how to make people invested in characters, is they say, oh, okay, April has a connection to them from their childhood, from her childhood. That means that they have an intimate relationship now. And we can just have them fight things. We got that out of the way. You know what I mean? Um,
Oh, Paul.
it was kind of a double-edged sword for me. I thought it was cool, like in a way, oh, that's interesting. I liked that they did it in the IDW comics, but then it was used in such a way where I was like, oh, well, now they feel like they don't have to do anything else developing the relationships between all these characters. So I don't know. I was of two minds about it.
I'm I'm reading people saying things like well, we can't complain about Splinter just reading about ninjutsu in a book and knowing ninjutsu because his origin in the '90 movie didn't make any more sense.
No,
He
it
was
didn't.
he was just a rat with a pea-sized brain who was able to mimic Hamato Yoshi's movements and then just happened to get like I'm just imagining rats all over the world doing this because then he's the one that just happens to get mutated and then he gets to learn to use it. So yeah, it doesn't make any more sense. It is in some ways a silly cartoonish enough world that you can sort of maybe be okay with it there.
Yeah, but the big problem with it is
yeah,
that he didn't just learn the ninjutsu out of a book. He learned how to be Japanese, have a Japanese accent, and dress like that. So that's where I think it goes too far.
Yeah, the
I'd be
culture,
okay. Yeah,
the Japanese culture is all artificial. I'm with you. That's what I was thinking about. Like, he doesn't have any roots in that Japanese culture that's so fundamental to what this thing is all about, and that's what kind
yeah,
of bothered me.
that's what I'm most complaining about. There are some silly coincidences that are irritating, but other Turtles things had had that before too. Yes. Also, I think it's important to mention that I like to take things on case by case. So just because that's a problem in another thing doesn't mean that it's less or more of one here. I think you have to. I think you have to look at it as a piece and be like, okay, how does that fit into this piece? What is the issue with that? With with everything. What I mean is, there was plenty of other things to grab onto in the '90s movie for me. When I look at something like this and I see that, I'm like, you guys don't seem like you're even trying. You know what I mean? Like that movie was about stuff, and yeah, it's it's not a perfect movie. It's not even a deep movie, but I mean, like, but like, it had heart
Oh,
and it
definitely.
had a consistent tone and it had really cool atmosphere and ambiance and stuff. So when I'm comparing them, it's only because, well, we've seen this property on screen before and it's kind of impossible not to, and they beg comparison some during the film. But the Splinter thing for me, so I wanted to address this because some people had argued with me about it in comments from the last video we did on this, and Sarah and I, not spoiling things, didn't say what exactly it was we didn't like about Splinter. My thing with Splinter was less that, although yeah, freaking really coincidental, way more coincidental than the other movie, because in this one he doesn't even he's not Hamato Yoshi. He's got no Japanese thing already. So like he finds this book, and then the Foot Clan just happen to be in that city. What are the odds?
Yeah.
Okay, but then the big thing for me was more that he wasn't Hamato Yoshi. That there was no connection to that sort of thing whatsoever. I'm not saying it can't be different somehow. It's just not as interesting. It's kind of lame, I think. It's like, okay, so he is their mentor now because he was older than them when they got mutated and he found a book. Okay, and he gets, and we get to pretend like he's got some big rivalry with Shredder just because we're used to seeing him fight Shredder all the time. Like, and then somehow he happens to remember all of these things about Shredder just because he was in that room, and I thought that was a hard pill to swallow.
I agree.
Because it was like, does Shredder just walk in a lot, or do they have these long? Well, you know what though, Dan? Everyone, as you said, everyone in this universe, all they do is expository dialogue, which means that the bad guy probably walked into the room and just started randomly expositing dialogue about the Shredder,
Yeah.
and that's why he knows about the Shredder. So okay, no, I buy it now because of the way everybody talks in this.
Yeah, I that's what I was thinking about too. I'm thinking about just the Shredder walking into William Fichtner's lab and being like, let me tell you all of my evil plans. And they just like discussed it for like 30 minutes, you know? And Splinter was like, oh, well, I guess we have to stop these guys when we eventually are mutated. I I mean, that's almost just as ridiculous as him learning ninja moves from a cage.
Yeah.
Or more so.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't like that there's not at least one of them. And yeah, it would probably have to be Splinter, but like, I just don't like that Splinter doesn't have any other connection to Japanese culture. And it seems like it's got to be somehow connected and rooted to the foot. I mean, isn't it really interesting, Dan, that the one big change they made was borrowed from the continuity that you and I keep saying is the single most fascinating backstory for the Ninja Turtles? I'm not sure the whole April names them and they have that connection with her, and they're brought up in that same way, works as well without the reincarnation thing. And I'm not saying they should have done that. I'm just saying that, like, they clearly were just cherry picking random things from places and throwing it in there.
Yeah, exactly. Um, it was just very strange to me, like, the one of the great things about the Shredder as a villain, and one of the things I find the most interesting about him is his connection to Japanese culture too. And they make him like talk with Japanese subtitles and say ridiculous things like I'm having turtle soup tonight, which was a funny reference to the cartoon, I guess. But like he just like is vaguely Japanese, but that's not a part of his character at all. Like he doesn't do anything that is informed by that culture. He doesn't have any like beliefs that are informed by that culture. He doesn't fight like anything informed by that culture because I'm pretty sure they didn't ninjas and samurai in feudal Japan didn't have arm magnet blades and silver samurai armor.
He could be anybody. And in fact, he could just be a mech robot. I mean,
Exactly.
it doesn't matter for the plot or any of
Exactly.
the relationships or anything.
But once again, clearly he's just an avatar of what the fans wanted that they thought they wouldn't accept after they heard complaints when we found out that William Fichtner was supposed to be the Shredder. Uh, Man, I would have probably said random change for the sake of change unless they really made me buy it. And I mean, like a lot of people would have said, this isn't fair. You got a white guy playing the Shredder, and even though he's from Japan, why couldn't we have had a really good, Eastern actor play this character? But just as far as the piece goes, as far as the story goes, yeah, it's really obvious what they did. Like, it's really obvious.
And I felt like the original direction of this movie probably would have been William Fichtner being Eric Sachs. Like through the whole movie, you think he's a good guy, and then they do the Dark Knight Rises thing at the end, where they're like, "I am actually this person," and you find out he's actually the Shredder at the very end of the movie. Because like that would make sense
Yeah.
with April finding out that he killed her father and stuff at the end of the movie. It would have been more of a, it's kind of more of a revelation, right?
Well, and they're doing so many of your stereotypical superhero tropes that the villain creating the hero motif was clearly supposed to be in there.
Yeah.
And sort of kind of is, except Eric Sachs is our big villain, and who cares about that guy? I mean, again, they could have made him kind of a new 21st century evil corporate mastermind kind of Shredder. Sarah, you had an interesting notion that we could have just gotten rid of that guy entirely and just had Rokusaki actually be a corporate mastermind.
Yeah, I thought that'd be cool. And then the Foot Clan is just his henchmen.
His
Maybe they're
bodyguards.
not thieves throughout the city, but they're his hitmen who go out and I don't know, do corporate espionage type of work.
Like, what do you think of that, Dan? Could we have had like a Lex Luthor-esque Rokusaki that's like leading his own company, like Saki Corp or something? Like,
That might have been cool. I mean, I wouldn't have been opposed to that. It would have been at least somewhat more interesting than what we got for a year. I mean, my thing too was how is that Eric Sachs guy not either Baxter Stockman or Krang by the end of the movie? Like they have an evil corporate scientist guy in their lexicon of Turtles lore. Why not use him? And I was thinking, well, if they're not going to use Baxter Stockman, maybe it's because it's an Utrom in a robot man's body or something. And that's how they get in Krang working with Shredder initially, kind of thing. Because that would have been sort of a cool nod to the cartoon if you didn't know that Shredder and Krang relationship was going on the whole movie until the end. That might have been kind of cool. But I don't know. I just found him to be really generic. Like he's a corporate guy that
But you
wants to be
wanted him to
super.
be genetic. See, that's the thing. You found him generic, but it would have been cooler if he was genetic. That's what you're.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know. Like I just wanted more from that character because like William Fichtner is a good actor and he was chewing up the scenery he had, but he just does the stupidest things like shooting April O'Neil and Vern when they're clearly behind cover. What is he doing? He's just wasting his clip in that scene. He's just like spouting expository dialogue and shooting his gun randomly for no reason.
well, and this piecing everything together from initial concept to everybody hates us before we've even got a draft is obviously sinking all the way into the plot, the actual villain plot. And let's go ahead and get into that. I want to just really fast make sure that I've got this straight, okay? So, this is the villain plot, as I said. I've only seen the movie one time, but this is, as I understand it, what the villain plot is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so William Fichtner's character is teaming with the Shredder, who, by the way, is never called Orokizaki. He's just the Shredder, and he is sending out foot soldiers to go steal stuff to make a new mutagen, because the mutagen that they had they thought failed, but it actually didn't fail. Well, except it did. It didn't do what it was supposed to do. It created giant 6.5 foot tall mutant turtles. And when they find out, holy crap, the mutagen actually did something. They decide, we're going to go back to our original idea because we can rule the city or the world or just get a lot of money. Actually, it's not even a rule the world plot. It's just make a lot of money a lot faster than trying to re-engineer the mutagen, because it apparently works now. So what they do is they kidnap the turtles, and they think that for some reason, because the mutagen, I guess they wouldn't have been calling it that yet, because the formula that they made created giant mutant turtles, that is proof that it works as an antidote to the horrible virus that they want to send out to the whole city and hurt everyone, so that they can then come back in and cure everyone, pretend to be heroes, and then the government will give them lots of money. All right, you know what's a lot more likely? You're going to turn a bunch of people into mutates. That's what's a lot more like. Why do they think that giant mutant turtles equals this is an antidote, Dan?
Yeah, I mean they have a throwaway line where they say the mutagen like self-repairs, but self-repairing would mean that Wolverine would turn into a 6.5 mutant thing every time his healing factor turned on. Like self-repair and mutating into a larger thing are not the same thing. But the movie thinks they are. So if you inject this mutagen that self-repaired the turtles into 6.5 anthropomorphic turtles, then it would cure the disease. Which doesn't make sense, because if you inject turtles with something that self-repairs, they would just heal wounds fast. They would just be little baby turtles with Wolverine powers that would never die and crawl around in the sewer.
Even if it did what they're saying it does, how would self-repairing mean curing an illness?
Well, I mean, if an illness attacks your body, you self-repair the damage it does.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah. I'm just saying I don't think you could be sure that it would work on everything.
I mean, I don't know. And it just seems like after they lose the mutagen and they didn't think they made any progress, they apparently just gave up and just started raiding like the city with foot thugs, not trying to accomplish very much of anything other than rob things.
Well, I guess they were trying to get more stuff to try to make the mutagen work, and I guess the assumption is that they just never found the compound or the right thing to make the right compound.
I think, well, all the lab notes were destroyed, the turtles and the rat were destroyed, so they had nothing to base their research on, so they had to rework this mutagen from scratch, and they were having a hard time coming up with the right formula.
You know, I have a simpler idea. I have a way simpler idea. I know how Eric Sachs could get lots more money, since that's what he wants. If somehow saving the city means the government gives you lots of money. Okay, now I mean, okay, I can sort of kind of see that, but then it's like, okay, you're a multi-billionaire already. It seems like you should set your sights a little higher. I don't know. But here's the thing, okay? What if so you have the ability to make a giant mech samurai costume, like you have this. Okay, right, like nobody's gonna argue with me on
Marketed
that.
for Halloween.
It's there. Well,
No.
you also are friends with a dude with a whole bunch of foot soldiers. So what you do, bear with me, this will blow your mind. You send out Shredder and his foot soldiers to wreak havoc on the whole city. And the police can't stop them because the police are incompetent because we're in a comic book movie. And nobody can stop them, and they're just wreaking havoc. And you can't even say, "Oh, the military can come in," because they don't, and they are there, and they are wreaking havoc, and nobody knows how to stop them, or even can ever find them or see them. And then Eric Sachs, like, sends out a couple of big giant mech robot things, and then finds the foot soldiers and pretends to stop them. And then you have the exact same plot, but it's easier to accomplish.
Yeah, he basically wants to privatize like city security and stuff instead of using, tax-funded police officers.
So
RoboCop.
So
now you're ripping off RoboCop.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that would work better than what we got. And like, who knows? Maybe that was the original idea to some degree. I mean, in the original script, apparently the Shredder was called Colonel Schrader. So.
That's right. So I mean, but I'm just saying. Obviously, we have yet another really elaborate, convoluted, silly villain plot.
Yeah.
Just because they gotta have a villain plot. Yeah. So yeah.
Everything the villains do in this movie makes absolutely zero sense to me. Like the scene where Splinter fights the Shredder for the first time, the fight is cool, but what happens during that scene makes no sense. Okay, so Splinter is like beating Shredder pretty badly in like most of the fight, and then the script decides he has to start losing, so he loses and gets knocked out. And then what the Shredder does is he could take Splinter with the mutagen in his body and use it for the experiments, but instead he uses, and Splinter like locks him in and acts like, no, you can't get my sons because they're the only people that have the mutagen in them, which doesn't make sense because Splinter was mutated by the same thing. And then
he's also not as big and easier to kidnap.
He isn't, exactly. They could have used him as bait to lead the turtles into his clutches, which I suppose would have been too similar to the first movie. That's probably why they didn't do that. But my only thought to why he needed the turtles was maybe he needed more mutagen, but the Foot Clan leaves 2 people with mutagen in them behind arbitrarily, so that can't be the problem either. So that scene just doesn't make any sense at all.
And to further that, what they say is, one of them's dead. So
just take his dead body and drain the blood from it.
Because later on, we're told they're gonna drain the other turtles until they're dead. They don't care if they're dead.
No, I have to add this caveat. They say we're going to drain their blood, all of their blood, even if it kills them. They're that evil. Draining their blood might not kill them, but they'll drain it till they die if that happens.
So I don't understand why they leave behind a dead one. Like, why don't they just have all those foot soldiers, or I don't know, your huge giant mech robot, dig them out of the rubble?
The answer to your question is the bad guys are just the stupidest people ever in this movie. They don't make any sense.
And understand, we're not just looking for random little things to complain about. It's just, as a whole, the whole thing is, I think, just like really thrown together. There's just not enough thought put into it. And I mean, some people might say, well, it's Ninja Turtles. Just turn your brain off and enjoy the action. And I'm like, okay, but I've seen Ninja Turtles that had more heart and was more about things. And I'm not looking for a masterpiece. I'm just looking for
cohesion,
a little bit of sense making, actual story, and something that doesn't feel like, if not derivative, at least, I mean, derivative, okay, I mean, I expect some of that, but I mean, if not wholly underivative, at least just some spark of personality, I don't know, there's just not enough to it. And yet, as I said before, I don't feel like it's unsalvageable. I think, and Dan, I'm with you, I don't know if we can really expect that these folks are going to make a better movie, but I'm just saying that, maybe next time around they'll at least make a script that's a little bit more cohesive because they won't be constantly tweeting things that piss people off and then say, oh, I guess we can't do that. We already wrote it.
Yeah, the foundation itself is not bad. I mean, it's you can work with what you have. It's just give us a plot, give us villains with motivation, and actually develop some of these relationships that you've set up. That's all you need to do.
I think it's kind of fun that it's more cartoony. I mean, I think it's fun that they borrowed so much from the '80s cartoon and that it's lighter and a little bit goofier. I'm cool with that. Like,
Yeah, me too. And I hope that they do more action scenes in the vein of, like I talked about before, the sliding down the mountain thing, because the ending action scene of this movie is straight up the same exact thing from Amazing Spider-Man 2's climax in the daytime. It's the same exact thing. You have
yeah, what's really stupid about that too is that the one in Spider-Man should have taken place during the day, and the one in Ninja Turtles should have taken place at night. I really don't think these designs look that good in the daytime. That's a thing. I think they look better. They look a little bit better at night. And as I said before, I'm going to make no bones about it. I don't like what they look like. I was hoping it would win me over a little bit more on it. Yeah, faces are ugly, whatever. But like, I'm more like, why are they so super bulky? You can't make me buy that they can hide in the shadows like that. And Dan and I talked about this privately, but like, they've got all this bling all over them. Like, they have stuff bouncing around and stuff. Like how are they managing to never be heard or seen? Oh, I know, because the script says so. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. And they show them fall into a manhole at the beginning of the movie, but I'm not convinced that something that big and that thick could fit in a real manhole. I'm sorry.
There's a reason we never actually see them fall into a real one. Yeah.
It's a plus-sized manhole.
Yeah. And they make a fart joke when they get stuck in a hole to something like that because they're so big.
Yeah, I didn't need that. I was glad there wasn't more of that. Once we had that, I was like, okay, it's going to be this kind of movie, and I was glad there wasn't more of that. How do you guys feel about the kind of like, how do I put the kind of hip hop vibe we've got with the Turtles in this? Because like it's the Turtles have always been a reflection of like the current really popular teenage, what I would call kind of least the common denominator culture. They're into whatever the kids are into these days, right? And so I thought it actually kind of made sense for that. I was more okay with it than I thought I would be, just because that's not my kind of thing. And some of the language, I was really like, oh no, are we gonna go? Really, we're gonna have them like call each other bra and that kind of thing? Do we have to do that? Do we have to do the jock thing? What did you guys think about all that?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I much prefer 90s culture to modern culture, but just because when did I grow up? You know, I didn't grow up with the hip hop stuff, but I totally understand the Turtles morphing and being the Ninja Turtles for this generation. I'm cool with that. And at the beginning of the movie, they were winning me over with what they were doing with it. But even though it's not my thing, I can enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah, I have similar feelings about it. I mean, the hip hop thing wasn't as immediately apparent to me as it was for you, and we had discussed that privately when we had talked about it. Like, I don't know, I always saw that a little bit in the Turtles in the first place because like hip hop was big in the 80s and 90s too. So like I always thought they had a little bit of that in them. So like to see it,
I guess I just mean more modern. Like I don't even know if I'm using the right terminology. You know what I mean? I'm just saying like they seem a little bit more like 2014 urban now than
Sure.
the 80s thing. And the current cartoon doesn't feel like that.
Right, yeah.
So it's kind of interesting that other Turtles things are still more of a throwback to like 80s and 90s stuff. Like the Turtles in the current cartoon show, they're watching Star Trek and playing old video games, because I think that's just what they're able to find around the sewers. You know what I mean? And so like that kind of makes sense. And then like these guys, they seem to be very much into top 40. You know, like it's pop and it's hip hop and it's whatever like the really popular urban stuff is right now. And they're in that area in New York City. So like, you know, it certainly makes sense. But it was a little bit of a culture shock because we've never seen it like that before. So I'm not even complaining about it. I was just like, I don't even want to say I was surprised by it, but it just seemed like something we should maybe bring up and talk about. I think, just me personally, just for what I like, I certainly don't like it as well, as but again, I guess I could have been won over by it because we just don't see enough of them in general.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought some of the pop culture references were a bit funny, but like Michelangelo was making most of them, and like I don't know. I don't think a Lost is a show that Michelangelo would watch and would hold his attention. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, but I burst up laughing when he said that. That was really funny. So I guess it's one of those things where they're trying to be accessible. They're trying to throw in stuff for everybody, and so they're
like I thought Donatello would be the guy to say I didn't understand at the end of Lost because he's the guy that wants to be smart about everything, and like Lost is a show that can be cerebral at points. So like that would be
that's
something.
the point. Michelangelo wouldn't have understood the beginning of
Right?
Lost.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I felt like that should have been Donatello's line. That's sort of a small nitpick, I guess, but like I don't think they were even all that consistent with the pop culture references and what things they were attributing to them.
Right, you've got four turtles. Let them all have different enough personalities that they have different interests, and then their different interests can reflect the different demographics of the audience to a certain
Yeah,
degree.
exactly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I thought some of the other superhero stuff was funny. I thought the the Batman voice reference is funny. I wish it hadn't been in the commercials because it was one of the funnier things. But no, there is some good comedy in this movie. I love the ending. I love everything about the ending. I thought blowing up Vern's car was funny. I thought like introducing the turtle van like that. It's cool. It's funny that they made toys of that. It's only in 6 seconds of the movie. The turtle van was fun. Was fun looking. I enjoyed all of that. And then the song was great. I mean, and part of that's because that song, "So Happy Together." That's one of that's probably my favorite song from that period. So when they started that, I was like, oh yeah, that's one of I don't know how Michelangelo found that song. That doesn't seem like his kind of music
Well, he
necessarily.
looked up the turtles on Spotify.
That must be what he did. And that's the other thing is that that's one of the best gags in the movie because if you don't know that people listening, that song was written by a group in the '60s called the Turtles. That's a great gag. That's fantastic. I wanted more of that kind of comedy throughout the film because that was nice and subtle and it plays great in the scene. But then maybe later on you think about it or you look up that song, you go, holy crap, it's a layered joke now. That's really good stuff. Yeah. So I don't know. I wanted more of that.
No, I'm with you. Subtlety added to this movie would have been awesome overall.
It's not terrible.
Yeah, I had a like pseudo fun time watching it. I had fun with specific moments, but I wouldn't call this a well put together movie by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I mean, and I wouldn't call it unsalvageable for a sequel either. So if
Right.
when they finally do make it, if it looks good, I'll go. Um, but
Things you want to see in the sequel. I think you have to do, if not Dimension X, at least alien stuff in this universe. I think you have to.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, they left. Again, all of the lines of this movie seem kind of throwaway, but there is a throwaway line in relation to the TCRI ooze about it being from outer space. So I would assume that's where they're going next.
Well, and when it's TCRI, it usually is at least somewhat derived from something alien. It's that way in the original Mirage comics, if memory serves.
It is, yes.
You had a lot of people saying, "Oh, you can't have the ooze be from alien stuff." Well, it was in the first place.
Yeah, the TCRI acronym, I forget exactly what it stands for, but I think the C stands for cosmic. It's some sort of technology, cosmic research, something
and it has to do with Utroms.
to that.
And
Yes.
so if you're doing so the fact that the original script had Krang in it is really revealing because you're gonna have that canister come from something alien. That's the Utroms. So like I was really disappointed that there wasn't a reference to Krang and Dimension X in this. I said for a long time before it even was made, but they were talking about making it, that at the time I kept saying I didn't want to see like $100 to $200 million Ninja Turtles movie if it didn't have space stuff in it because it just didn't seem like it warranted it. I feel like that's a thing that you can easily do on a minimalist kind of budget. It's urban, it's street level. And Dan, was there anything in this movie that really warranted that kind of a budget?
No,
Just on a script kind of level?
I mean, besides the big action set pieces in this, definitely not. Um, this is a Michael Bay movie, so we have to have. I know he produced it, but the projects even that he produces all kind of have his tone and feel that he has even for the movies he directs. So, I mean, I feel like if we're going to have a Michael Bay thing, we're going to have those. Big action set pieces that fill up the third act of the movie, out of obligation. So I guess that's where all the money needs to be spent. But if we're gonna think about all of the scenes of this movie that weren't those, then no, I don't think you needed that kind of money at all.
I mean, it just that kind of imagination isn't on the page.
Right.
You throw that kind of money at it when it's something that you couldn't have done 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. And
I think, and so I watched through the end credits, really hoping that there would be hoping that there would be some kind of maybe after credit scene or something. And I'm not saying that I always need those. I'm just saying that, like, having gone through the movie, not getting a reference, I was like, maybe they'll at the after credit scene they'll kind of give us something about Krang, because they were doing Dimension X in the original script, so people didn't like Alien Turtles and they had to throw Dimension X out entirely. Why?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I would have
start with Krang. Might have been fun to not even have Shredder in this movie and just start with Krang.
Yeah, I would have been cool with that too. It'll be interesting to see what sort of villains they do select for the second one, because you would think, like, because everything needs to be a trilogy now, you would save Krang for the third movie, because that's like the biggest stakes you can have in the Turtles universe, I suppose, with an alien invasion. Like, I don't know what other villains would be able to you'd be able to do afterwards that would match that sort of large stakes. You know what I mean? Especially in the way that these guys operate. I mean, for a third movie, you can go smaller scale and make it character driven and make what the character is going through really difficult, but we know we're not going to get that, so
not likely to do that. So what else? What do you think, Sarah?
You said that they were going to do Bebop and Rocksteady
That's what they're talking about right now.
Well, that's cool with me, because those are two of my favorite characters, actually, from the original cartoon.
To make them really menacing, though, they're going to have to be like 9 feet tall. Like.
Well, I'm interested to see what they do with that, if that's really where they go, because I felt like we got sort of a toned down, faked out version of that in Ninja Turtles 2 in the 90s.
Ironically, they were the size of the turtles
and
in this.
Razar. And I want to see actual Bebop and Rocksteady, as opposed to just what we got in the sequel, the first sequel in the 90s.
Yeah. And hopefully they're not babies.
Yeah, I think maybe for the second one, you do some more mutates, and then the third one you pull away and have Technodrome and stuff. Like,
hey, maybe we can get Tatsu for the second movie.
Tatsu,
yes, and Kino the Ninja Pizza Kid.
I'd be okay without him, but
Kino the Ninja, that'd be hilarious.
No, I just need more Tatsu one-liners to go around quoting all the time.
And grunts.
Yes.
It's weird because on the Wikipedia entry there on the cast list, Baxter Stockman is listed, and I wonder if he got scenes that were cut out, or if he's like in one scene and never named, and I just didn't notice him. But I wonder if they'll do him, and like, you don't want to throw like a million villains in one movie, but like Bebop and Rocksteady are henchmen, so unless they do something more with them, I feel like you can put them in and then do lots of other things. Like I think you could do them and Mouser robots easily in the same movie, and stuff like that.
Maybe Baxter Stockman is April's dad, and he's not really dead.
He just turned into a giant fly.
Yeah.
Why did she call April Stockman?
I don't know. That would be less, unbelievable than a lot of the other things in this movie, so who knows?
I completely agree with that, Dan. But I don't know. I mean, I want to be somewhat optimistic. I'm sitting here thinking about the whole Krang thing, and I'm like, okay, if you'd done him in the first movie, and it was, and you could have made it even more Man of Steel, because he could have tried to terraform the Earth while April O'Neil figures out who the turtles are, but then decides not to tell her boss, who gets angry at her for not telling him or to not telling her about them. And then he tries to so Krang tries to terraform the Earth, and then at the end of the movie, one of the turtles pulls him out of his body and smashes him with his foot. And then the whole audience gasps, and then Leonardo goes, "No!"
You just mentioned April and her boss fighting, and that's one thing that I kind of forgot to mention. If we can go back to that scene for a minute here, she has a picture of the turtles on her cell phone during the scene where she's trying to convince Whoopi Goldberg that they're real, and she comes off like this crazy person for comedy, but she has irrefutable. Well, I mean, it's photo proof, so it could be faked and it's really blurry and stuff, but she has some kind of proof, and nowhere during that conversation does she take out her cell phone and show Whoopi Goldberg the picture.
And yet that's the first thing she takes out and shows the corporate guy.
Exactly.
No, she shows it to Bert.
She shows
Or
it to
does
Bert?
she,
No, I
or does
thought
she show
she
it to the
showed it
corporate
to
guy?
the... Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's what they did with it. And I mean, obviously he would believe her because he knows that what that stuff is maybe able to do. But really, like, why didn't she show that to Whoopi Goldberg?
I don't know. The plot forgot that picture existed briefly, and then it came back into existence by the next scene. Who knows?
Yeah. And I spent that whole scene going, "Where's your cell phone? Why are you using all of these pictures of other things that prove nothing?" I don't understand that.
Yeah, like that close-up of the real turtle's head. That's just a normal turtle.
Yeah.
It's like, they look like this. No, they actually really don't.
She could have printed out the picture she had on her cell phone and put it up.
Exactly.
And put it up there. I don't understand. Well, we're well past an hour. Final thoughts, guys, before we finish off here.
I didn't really like this movie, and hopefully the next one's better. That's really all I have to say. It wasn't completely unenjoyable, but it's not a very good movie at all.
Yeah, and I have to take the opposite tact of I really didn't hate this movie because that's what I thought was going to happen. So, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised, and yet it's still not a great movie. I had a lot of fun watching it, except for the parts where I was bored. So, yeah, hopefully the next one is better.
Last thing I'd like to say is that this is the absolute best time ever to be a Ninja Turtles fan because you have options. You have lots of options. You have old stuff, you have current new stuff. There are 3 things happening concurrently right now for Ninja Turtles. I never thought I'd see the day where we saw 3 concurrent Ninja Turtles continuities happening at the same time. The cartoon show is really good. I'm very happy with it. I think it's well written. I think it's funny. I think it's witty, and I think it's one of the best things on TV for kids. I love the IDW comics. It's the best thing I'm reading. It's one of the best things I'm reading right now. You want character depth for the Ninja Turtles? That's where you go. It's fantastic. I wish we could get something like that. I wish we could get that adapted somehow, someday. That'd be fantastic. But I can't get upset with really kind of least common denominator Ninja Turtles movie when we have really good other stuff going on. And as I'm with Sarah, it's not anything like as bad as I thought it would be, and I think it has potential. I mean, I think that if they get smart and somebody just gets excited about the material and has a spark of imagination, just taking a shower one day, we might get a good movie. So I don't know. I can't get upset about it. I can't freak out about it. Oh no, you ruined Ninja Turtles. Well, first of all, we still have all the great stuff we had before, and second of all, there's really good Ninja Turtles happening right now, alongside kind of lukewarm, mediocre Turtles. I'm not going to call it bad. I'm going to call it lukewarm.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I don't want to come off like I'm saying it ruined the franchise or anything. It wasn't like that monumentally terrible. Because it's better than Ninja Turtles 3. At the very least, we can say that. So
I have to disagree with that, but I happen to like Ninja Turtles 3 a lot better than most people.
Really weird. She actually likes that movie. We're going to do a commentary where I'm going to try to eat her for lunch and show her how bad that film is. But
it's not a good movie, but it's fun. I like it. So
I don't think it's fun.
I also have to say I have a history of really enjoying B movies. So maybe part of that plays in.
And B stands for bad, okay? She likes bad movies. She doesn't mean B movies like you think. No, she means bad movies. She likes bad movies. No, I'm not even kidding. She really does. She likes some pretty bad movies.
Oh,
Love
But they're
really
fun.
enjoyable. Like this movie in some scenes.
No, that's absolutely true. Yeah, well, it'll be fun to do a commentary on this movie.
It will be very interesting to do a commentary on this movie.
Well, anyway, I want to thank everybody for listening. I'm sure people are going to have varying opinions on this as always. Feel free to leave your comments in the comment section, where the comments go. And we will talk to you again very shortly. Lots of other things happening here on Geekvolution. We're going to try to get some more commentaries out for you and stuff like that. In the meantime, I'm Captain Logan.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Dan.
And thanks so much